Hello, it's Nikki from Two Tribes Primal Living, and I'm here today to talk to you about the personality that we all have and how our birth chart or natal chart impacts that. It's really interesting because I came to understanding birth charts probably 10 years ago and really found them of interest for myself. So I kind of dove headfirst into exploring natal charts, and but more initially for myself, just figuring out who I was and reading my natal chart, and or should I say my natal chart quote unquote report or assessment. And understanding it, when I read it, I was like, wow, that's me. You know, when you read it by yourself, you're like, I get that. You know, some things we read and we're like, that's not really me. It might have been me 20 years ago, or maybe it hadn't yet happened to you. But the natal chart assessment, the natal chart report, it kind of gives you a rundown of who you are. And I'll kind of explain that, because it's, you know, when someone hears natal chart, I've had people do this. They hear birth chart or natal chart and they're like, oh, that's that astrology hocus pocus. And, you know, as I've learned in my life or on my journey, anything that I come to know and understand and stand in the confidence of is probably not hocus pocus. When I am confident, not so much in a belief system or a group of others who are saying, oh yes, this is the way, this is what you're supposed to believe or what do, you know, but more in a way of a spiritual alignment or soulful alignment. I don't take it as hocus pocus. I don't look at things and say, that's a little weird for me, whenever I'm aligned with it. And so that being said, you know, like I said, many years ago, I read my birth chart for myself and found it not just interesting, but freaking profound. Like, wow. And so I kind of started jumping into exploring what these charts meant, where they originated, why they were used, and how they're relevant today. You know, and there's a whole world of people, and if you follow me, if you follow Two Tribes Primal Living podcast, if you follow our YouTube channel, if you follow our Facebook page or our blog, you probably understand where we come from spiritually anyway. So that being said, you know, we don't just jump into the belief system du jour. There's no, you know, 8 months ago I was X and now 8 months forward I'm completely transcended into some spiritual guru. No, there's been a whole world of exploration, and astrology and natal charts were something that absolutely fascinated me. not on a shallow level or an entertainment level, but man, when I read mine, I was like, that shit's real. That's relevant. I how come I've never read anything like this before? So I started replicating birth charts and doing other people's birth charts, and just, you know, just reading and seeing people who had no idea. And it was very impactful for me. In a way, I started understanding things, and I started sensing things, and I started getting in alignment with things. So birth charts in and of themselves, basically what a birth chart is this snapshot, this moment. You were born in a city, in a state, or a country, a region, at a certain time, on a certain day of a certain year. And you were born into this world as either a male or female. with the pieces parts that aligned with male or female. So with all of that information, that moment, that very moment you entered wherever it was you were, is a snapshot or a roadmap relative to you as a person. And what do I mean by that? Well, we are all this makeup of personality when we're born. We come into this world with an innate personality. I mean, you have 7 babies in a nursery. They have 7 very distinct personalities. And, there's some environmental elements of that. But in the nursery of birth, they're born that way. Some are cranky, some are comfortable, some are colicky, some are just quiet and peaceful and observing. So everybody's a little different, and there's a lot of factors that play into that. But our birth chart, it is a snapshot of all of those little traits, and those traits are aligned with planets. Each planet of our solar system. So as we stand here on Earth and we look up into the sky, we can see Mars, and we see Venus, and we see Mercury, and we see the moon. We see the moon frequently, and we see the sun frequently. And so all of those planets are in our solar system. So you may not see Neptune, Uranus, or Pluto, but they're out there, and they're on the outer edge of our solar system. And then there are other points on there too, but I won't get into that. But those planets are all part, or that moment we were born, those planets were there in a certain position. They weren't perfectly symmetrical around, I'm looking up and I'm like, okay, there's the sun, there's the moon, there's Mercury, there's Venus, there's Mars, it wasn't like that. It was the planets, wherever they were, some of them might have been off of the horizon, some of them might have been right in the sky. So at that very moment of your birth, no matter where you were, what it looked like in that space, those planets, which all planets possess a specific energy, and I'll get into that, those planets were in a specific position relative to your moment, or the moment that you entered into this life. So this is a lifetime. We're born and we die. So this is a lifetime for us. This is my lifetime. And I have a natal chart. All things have a natal chart. Anything that is created has a natal chart, and you can run a natal chart on anything. So a dog has a natal chart, so to speak. So the planets and their position have an impact on our personalities. Now, before I go into that, I'm going to go back, like I said in the beginning of the video, to the ancients, to our ancestors, who used these natal charts to help place an individual into the correct relationship, into the correct marriage, into the correct career, into the correct living conditions or living environment, or maybe they were to be a warrior, or they were to be a healer, or they were to be a wife and mother, and maybe they were to be a free spirit or an artist. Maybe there were certain places and certain living conditions that they required. And I'm not saying that all cultures aligned with all those things, but what I'm saying is that different cultures use those charts to help an individual or a community better function and flow. The birth chart then and the birth chart today are no different, and they allow an individual to tap into their deepest potential in this lifetime, because it is, the birth chart is for this lifetime. So they tap into that deeper potential for themselves. Some people have a lot of old shit to deal with, and some people, they come into this lifetime fairly clean. So, you know, everyone's a little different based on that natal chart. But those natal charts, you know, as then and now, they are used to help people match up relationships, for example. Personality traits that would mesh best with you are already predetermined in that birth chart. You have a choice. You don't have to pull out your birth chart and start thumbing through it and say, okay, I can only date these signs, or I can only date these people. Now, so that's kind of what they were used for. They also help us aligning with the correct career, the correct family situation, the correct living environment, aware of certain health issues as they're related to the natal chart. On a natal chart, so I'll go back to now the fundamentals of a natal chart and what it is. The natal chart is that snapshot in that moment. And you have a sun in the sky, which it might have been night when you were born, but the sun is still in the solar system. The moon, wherever its placement is, whether it was a quarter, waxing, waning, full, 3/4, black moon, whatever it was. You have the planet Mercury, which that's the planet of and I'll get into that in a second. You have the planet Venus. You have the planet Mars. You have the planet Jupiter. You have the planet Saturn. You have the planet Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And then you have what is called your rising sign. Now, the most important sign on the chart is your rising sign. A lot of people get hung up on the sun sign. Ooh, what sign are you? Well, me, I'm a Sagittarius. I was born in December. I was born December 16th. So I'm a Sagittarius. But that natal chart snapshot is determined by the time you are born. And I mean, there's a little give here and there, different that takes into account, depending on who runs your chart, takes into account the daylight savings time crap that, you know, whenever that came into play. I mean, charts have been run for thousands of years, so this is not a 2021 new thing. A lot of people have made it novel, especially with the hippie movement back in the 70s. It became entertainment, and ooh, that's so trendy and fun and hippie and new age, and it's just kind of stuck in that in some mindsets, but it's not. It transcends the hippie mindset, and I use the term hippie mindset because if you think back in the 60s and 70s, there was a movement that, you know, we had hippie communes, we had new age stuff, we had the white folks tapping into the native energies and using fringe. My husband said it earlier, it was funny, he's like, the fringe and the fringy purse and certain, you know, the dream catchers and those types of things, which are true tools, but they became abused and overused by that movement, and now they lost some of their validity to the population as a whole. Same with birth charts, same with astrology in general. So we go back to the sun sign. Your sun sign is what most people determine you by. That's a Sag. He's an Aquarius. She's a Libra. They're Pisces twins, or, you know, oh, she's a Gemini. And they start looking at that sun sign. Well, the most important sign on that chart is your rising sign. And the rising sign is when you were born, it is at that very moment what planet or what sign was on the horizon, not a planet. The rising sign is not a planet. It is a physical marker that starts, we'll call it, it's your birth time. And it's what planet or what sign was on the horizon at that time. So we're all born into a sign that may or may not be your sun sign. Most people it's not. But for like instance, my mom was born at a certain time that her rising sign, which is way more important to me than your sun sign, it's a collection of the whole, but she was born under a rising sign of Leo, which I'm also a rising sign of Leo, but I'm a Sagittarius. And she was born under the rising sign of Leo, but she is also a Leo sun. So those two make up 40 to 50% of who you are personality-wise. Maybe not quite that much, but those two signs are super important. And the birth chart reveals those. You can't have an accurate birth chart. You can't really have an accurate, I'm this of the zodiac, if you don't have your birth time, date, place, location, period. All of those factors factor in to that whole what's your sign thing. So if you don't have all that, if you don't know your birth time, you don't really grasp the fullness, the depth and the breadth of your whole natal chart. You are not just your sun sign. So you got your rising sign. So that's the most important. Then you've got your sun sign. Your sun is your will, your ego, your life force, your vitality, your energetic bubble that precedes you. It is your ego. And so as we've talked about in many of our videos, the ego is particularly used for sensuality. If I'm hungry, I eat, that's my ego. If I'm tired, I sleep, that's my ego. If I'm lonely, I find companionship, that's my ego. If my body needs to reproduce, that's my ego. If I'm hungry, I don't know if I said that, or thirsty, I satisfy those needs. Those are all ego-based, and we all have those, and they're very primal. So, we all have an ego. There's nobody on this planet who is alive who is without ego. So that life force energy that you possess within and without is your sun sign. Again, mine is Sagittarius. So there are certain traits assigned to the Sagittarius sign. We're known for being childlike and full of laughter and smiles, and we like to play some pranks and play around, and we're kind of goofy and active, and we love to travel, and we do. We love foreign lands. We like to go places that are not, and foreign doesn't mean across the pond, or it can mean across the pond. Or we're fascinated with foreigners or foreign people or foreign things or new things or playful, and there's, they're also associated for whatever reason with being drug addicts and things like that. So the sign itself has traits that align with it. And there's so many traits that go with a sign. But again, childlike laughter and playful is probably what Sages are known for primarily. If you had to pick a couple, it's like their laughter. So they're all over the place. They're your ghosters, and they're runners. They leave. So that is the Sagittarius, some of the Sagittarius traits. Each sign possesses a set of traits, good, bad, and different. And when I say a set of traits, some traits, if a person is aligned and balanced in that planet, in that sign, which means they have all positive, and I'll get into that, positive lineups, then they're more likely to show the traits that are deemed positive. So as a Sagittarius, if I'm aligned, I show more of the playful, skippy. You'll see me outside with the moon, I'll have my hands up and I'm just like happy. You'll see me skipping. I love activity, I love fun. So those traits are part of my being aligned in will and life force. So that's your sun. Now, I'll rewind and go to the rising. So my rising is Leo. And again, that is the sign that was on, at the very time, that was on the very edge of the horizon. So if I was born at 2:01 in the morning, the horizon was here at 2:01 in the morning, Leo was right here, then that's my rising sign. Your rising sign serves as a filter for all other planets in your birth chart. And this explanation, and before I get too in depth, of the planets is why a person who's a Leo is not like the person over there who's a Leo, and who's not like the person over there who's a Leo. You can have 3 Aries women in a room and they're not exactly the same, and their lives aren't exactly the same. Oh, you're Aries, but you're a little different. You seem softer than most Aries. I'm doing a chart right now on somebody who is an Aries, who has a very soft disposition that's not part of Aries, and that's because her rising is Cancer. So having a Cancer rising with an Aries sun is, you know, Aries are fire, and they're the first in, and they're starting a project, and I'm going to do this, and we're doing this new adventure, and they're finishers too. Like, they want to finish first. They're highly competitive as a general rule. They want to deal with it now. They want to go, and they love new projects, new canvases, new. And Cancers are really super emotional and attached, and they're what is the word when I'll think of the word later, but when somebody is, they like to reminisce about things and their families, and they're much softer. So to have a rising Cancer, that just means that Leo sign of your sun and will and your life force kind of filters through that Cancer rising coffee filter. So everything has to go through that coffee filter. And a person's rising sign is essentially how, if you were to walk into a room of people for the first time, it is actually the vibe that you would give off to those people. So if I walked into a room, I would be like, you know, someone would look at like, oh wow, that's a powerful, strong woman over there. She's so vibrant, she's an extrovert, and she's all those things. And I'm speaking to me, when really I'm an introvert and I'm not a big people person, but my vibe, my first impression vibe with people comes across more of, you know, childlike, vibrant, and all these things. So that is my Leo sign. And my Leo sign is you know, power. It's shine. It's a life force that is wow. It's a lot of times in those 2 signs alone, your sun sign and your rising sign, that's kind of how you dress, how you present yourself. Like a Capricorn would present themselves very differently than somebody who's a Sagittarius. So, you know, I don't want to get too in depth, and I tend to get too in depth because I'm so passionate about this stuff. And I know its validity in the hundreds of birth charts I have done for people. Hundreds, not just a couple here and there. And I can go on about how long I've been doing it, but I won't. I've just done hundreds, and some of them have been excruciatingly, painfully truthful for the recipient or for me to do. The recipient, they don't like what looks back at them. And that's okay. It's not about, it's just about embracing those personality traits so that you can have the best lifetime based on your birth chart, based on your personality traits that are relative to you. So as I look at the different planets, as I said, we have the rising and we've got the sun. So then we have the moon. The moon is just as important. If I had to pick 3 on the birth chart, that's those top 3 that give me, like I said, 40 to 50% of who you are as a person. If I know those 3 traits about you, or signs about you and nothing else, I know a lot about you. And you can know a lot about yourself. You're not just your sun sign, you're your rising sign. Those are top 2. And then the moon sign. So the moon is your emotional state, how you emote, in the privacy of your own home with your spouse, and how you emote with your children, how you emote in private. Some people are, they're like my mom, she has all those Leo traits, but she is a Cancer moon, and that means she's super emotional, but because of her leonine traits, she doesn't have those outward emotions that someone who is a Cancer moon with maybe a Cancer sun might have. So now you kind of see in how all these interrelate and how it's relative to the birth chart. Then you've got your Mercury, which is the way you speak and think. That's how you think and speak. So if my sun sign and my rising sign and my Mercury sign are all in the same space, they're all under the same sign, they're all Leos, I'm really going to be a Leo. I'm going to be a true Leo. Like what I say, what comes out of my mouth, my thoughts, my words, how I express are going to be the same as my vibes. Both new in a room, on stage performance. That's what Leos are. We're on stage. And of course, I'm not a Leo, I'm a Sag, but I'm a rising Leo. And that Mercury is the way you speak. And then next in the planetary, so that kind of accounts for maybe 55% of you, of your personality traits. So now you can see how you can have 4 different signs. So your 55% of you is made up of 4 different signs. And next, after your Mercury, you have your Venus. Now, Venus is not sex. People think Venus is sex. Venus is sensuality. It is touch, taste, smell, all the senses. It is a physical, romantic sign. So Venus, if you have a Venus in Taurus, you have a very, very happy Venus planet. And because Taurus is the ruler of Venus, or Venus is the ruler of Taurus. And you are romantic. You work hard, you play hard, but you like the luxury, you like the romance, you like the sensuality, the smell of the flowers, the feel of the cloth on the skin, the taste of the foods. You go on dates, you like to romanticize things, and that's what Venus is about. It's luxury, it's money too, but I won't go into, there's so much. And we all have a Venus sign. So you can be an emotionally, all these emotional signs, and your Venus could be this really harsh sign, and you're not a romantic. So now we've got 5 planets and 5 different signs, and so all of a sudden you become 5 different things. Your next one is your Mars. That's your energy. That's not just your life force. That's your call to action. That's what you do and how you do it. I call it the primal sign, or the fuck it or fight it sign, because it is your fight. It's your physical fight. A Pisces Mars won't take the same action as an Aries Mars. An Aries Mars, like I said before, it's the first sign of the zodiac, so it's the first one out of the chute. But a Pisces Mars is more watery and fluid and flow, and Cancer Mars might be all the actions that they take are emotional, and Capricorn Mars and Virgo Mars are, they're professional and organized. So that's your Mars. So it's your sex style. Venus is your romance. Mars is your sex style. It's your primal energy. And then we move into the middle planets, which are Saturn and Jupiter and Saturn. Jupiter is your growth and your knowledge, your expansion. So those first planets were your personality traits. For me, when I do birth charts, that is my intention and my focus, is the personality traits that pop out of the chart based on other factors, and I'll get into those other factors here in just a second. But those planets, your rising, your sun, your moon, your Mercury, your Venus, and your Mars, those are your personality planets. We call them interpersonal planets, personal planets, inner planets, but those impact directly the traits that you exude in the areas that each planet covers. So it's that, it's that simple. Those two interpersonal planets, Jupiter and Saturn, are how you deal with, or, deal with certain facets of, they're still kind of personality, but they expand a little bit further out. And if you notice, the personal planets are close in on the scale of the solar system, and then you got the middle ones, which are a little further away from center. If we are Earth, then that's, grounded Earth, then those interpersonal affect us. These are how we deal with things. And then you have the three outer planets, which deal with the collective, basically, as a whole: spiritual, deeper, darker, subconscious, shadows, those kinds of things. But Jupiter is growth, it is expansion, it is knowledge, it is how we learn and how we have grace and generosity, and how we teach, the wisdom we bring forth, the knowing we bring forth. It's growth and expansion and luck. It's our opportunities. If we're somebody in life who has always down on their luck, it's like, damn, bad things happen to them. It's always prudent to check their Jupiter placement, because that impacts a lot of that. All the personal things do too, but Jupiter might be and I'll get to the positioning of it, might be in a bad relationship with, let's say, your Mars. So every time you have a call to action and you go do something, it's like, damn, that fell through. That wasn't good. And that could be related to your Jupiter. So your Jupiter sign. So now we've got the seventh planet. That could be 7 signs for some of you. So now all these things are no longer, you're not just your sun sign. You're all of these things. And in a certain combination. And then you got Saturn. Saturn I call the authoritative, mean, militant father who tells his kids, you're going to be in at 8 o'clock at night and you're going to be in bed by 10. That's it. No dates. You're not wearing a bra until you're 20. You're not wearing makeup until you're 40. You're not having kids. You're not dating. It's that rule-driven dad who just brings down the hammer. Saturn is about restrictions and rules and laws and governance and all of that. Right now on the planet, Saturn has been in a pretty rough position anyway. So that's why we have so much restrictions going on planetarily, and it has. This is not, I'm not just speaking this because, there's restrictions going on, so therefore we must be in Saturn problem. It was a call to those of us who study, align with astrology, back in 2019 when they're like, Saturn's coming. And these things are coming, so be prepared. And that's why there's so many rules and restrictions. So you can have a Saturn sign as well. And then we get into the outer planets. Now these, again, they impact our personalities and how we experience things, but they come at us from a subconscious, a collective whole. That's where spirituality resides. That's where dreams and sleep reside, all of those things. So Uranus is the first one. And Uranus, however you want to say it, that is the planet of sudden change or changes. And I will say always, 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 and Uranus will shake things up. That is the weirdo. He will mess with some stuff. And it's to get you on the right path. So Uranus is very important in our lives because it causes sudden shifts, sometimes violent shifts, sometimes violent accidents, sometimes sudden divorce, sometimes sudden betrayals in your life to get you back on the path. So Uranus placements are really, really important, but it's not directly related to your personality. You don't exude a Uranus. You exude a moon. So we have that, and then we have the placement of Neptune, which is that is collective consciousness. That's how we connect on a deeper level all things are connected. I use that one. All things are connected. That is our dream world. Then we have Pluto, which is the last one on the chart, and it is responsible for transformation. So when you were born and you're a football player, and you are living the life, drinking the beer, going to church, you got the family, whatever, and all of a sudden you have this Uranus impact, violent breakup thing that just rocks your world, and now all of a sudden you're like a spiritual guru. That's your Pluto, you know, and it sits in a sign as well. So all of those things as a whole, and there's other things on that chart, like your dark shadows, your relationship energies, which they're formed by a spot, the furthest spot on the chart. It's the darkest point further away. We call it the Lilith. Some people call it the dark moon or dark Lilith moon, but it's not a physical planet. It's almost the absence of everything. It's the furthest point on the chart. If I were looking out into space, it's like the darkest point. So it deals with subconscious shadows, and our shadow work. That's really where our shadow work comes from. And then you have a soul purpose. You have traits you come into this lifetime. Remember, that's what the natal chart is, this lifetime. You have the traits that you possess, and then you have the ones you need to master and to heal this lifetime, and that is your north node. Those are called your nodes. You got us north and south. North and south. It's a circle chart. It's a graph. So all of those things define you specifically as a whole being, because it has all these traits. Now, remember, as I said, you got the personality traits, good, bad, and indifferent. You've got, if you're aligned and in balance and you're just flowing in all the things, you don't have any negatives on there, then that probably means all those planets are in good relationships with one another. Meaning we're going to get a wasp on here. Meaning they are in good relationship. They're not in opposition of one another. They are in a fluid placement on your chart. That doesn't really happen. I mean, it can, but you will have negative placements on your chart, meaning opposition. So you have one planet over here and one planet here, and they're directly 180 degrees from one another, which means they are in opposite positions or opposite signs, so there'll be challenges between them. That means whatever are placed opposite on your birth chart, you will likely experience challenges in your life. So I'm running the chart right now, and this is kind of what a chart looks like, and it's got all these lines and fun things around them, and I make notes when I do mine, but all of what I'm saying, this is what it looks like. So when you take that chart and you look at it and you're like, what was that she just showed? When you take that chart and you look at it, you can see that there are a lot of angles and things and placements and lines, and planets are here, 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 or you've got all the planets on one side. I think on hers, she had all the planets over here as a general rule. You have all these aspects, is what they're called. The aspect is the relationship between two planets. So I can have two Leos who are rising sun and moon Leos, side by side, both girls. But maybe one of the Leos, her Mercury is in a sign that's opposite the Leo. So that person is going to have some conflict between all of her Leo planets and whatever sign is across. So if I say her Mercury, then what comes out of her mouth and her thoughts are going to be highly different, opposite than what her will is or what her rising is and what her emotions are. And so I have another one who has their Mercury in Leo. So what they say, how they will, all those things are exactly the traits of Leo. You also have an aspect called a square, and I don't want to get into what it means, other than it's even a harder position on your chart, because you've got, it's not just opposite, it's like it's uncomfortable AF. So those are areas where, when you have squares on the chart, that are areas where you might have some karmic energies, especially if it's like a high negative. And we focus on those when we look at how they impact your personality. So I don't want to go too deep into it, although that is a lot of information. But I do want you to be able to understand, and like watch the video again if you need to understand what all of those things mean, and what they really mean. What the birth chart in summary means is that the second you were born, the second this individual was born, and it's right here, her rising, that's the second she was born, it put her in Cancer. But she was born under an Aries sun. And she's got other Aries placements on her chart. So a couple of her planets are in Aries. A few of her planets are in Taurus. Nothing else. I think there's a couple of planets in another sign, and then one planet over here. All of those things create, and based on the aspects of those planets, create the personality traits that she has the capability to unlock and align with in career, in her relationships, in her parenting style, in her adventures, in her spiritual growth, in her emotional growth. There might be areas on there where they're like, you tend to lose your shit all the time. You need to get shit together and calm the fuck down. Then she can know that, okay, I'm somebody who loses my shit a lot in the emotional, but because I've got some maligned planets there, I have the capability of identifying that and embracing it and moving forward with it. Like, I know I'm going to lose my shit. I need to stay away from these types of situations. And it's all there. It's all written in the charts, or written in the stars, as they say. And it's a beautiful tool to have. Again, hundreds of people I have done natal charts for. Out of all of them, I've had one, and she was just not pleased with what showed up in her chart. It's not that she didn't align with it, because she does align with it, but she was a young girl. Usually with teenagers, they have a hard time, unless they have an old soul, they've been around a long time, many lifetimes through. The lady I'm doing today, the one I'm working on today, she doesn't have any karmic work in her chart. She's done it all, and it's like, wow, that's the first time I've ever seen that. I've had a chart where it was just like, oh my gosh, I had such a hard time with it, because it was so plaguing to my soul. It was so hard to run, because the person was so full of darkness, and so full of just dark energy. That was really challenging for me. But I don't absorb it, I clean it, and I move forward in it. The charts and it helped her get her life together. I've seen people identify with this and be able to make major decisions in their lives, start careers. I've seen some that it lights them up, and they're ready to change, make changes, because they see all this stuff, and then they flop right back into where they are, or they take dark paths. They see how to heal themselves and all the work they need to, but then they opt for a dark path, and they don't realize the work they were to be doing. They align with some of the traits that probably weren't the best. So that being said, I'm going to leave it right here. Have your birth chart read. If you don't, I do them. You can come to us. I will do them. You can message us here if you want to have them done, and we'll give you the information, how much they cost, and all that good stuff. I do a report. So I run your chart. I go through your chart. I look at your chart. I find your traits. I find your aspects. And then I print out this beautiful, or email you this beautiful anywhere. The smallest I've seen is like 14 pages. The longest I've seen is like 30 pages. It's like a book. I do the same for everybody, but some people have more negative aspects or more important aspects in their charts. There's more to the chart, and I'm not going to go into that on this video. I just wanted to cover the highlights of what a chart is, but in depth with those highlights of what a chart is, and the personal planets, the interpersonal planets, and the outer planets, and why those are so important. One thing I didn't cover was retrogrades. They show up in your chart, whether you were born under retrograde, what planet was born under retrograde, and those are very important, because when we do go into a retrograde, like we're coming up with Mercury retrograde this month, and we're in, all these planets are currently in retrograde. Uranus is in retrograde. Saturn is in retrograde. All these planets are in retrograde right now. And if you were born under one of those retrogrades, and those just become times of you need to slow down and really reflect and heal some of the things that, yeah, that's when the birth chart is really important, because you can go back and start looking and going, oh yeah, I see. So all that being said, if you have any questions, please drop us a comment. If you want to have a birth chart run, please drop us a comment and let us know that you would like to. If you have any comments about the video or birth charts, you know, if it's something you want to know more about, just drop us a comment, and I will respond to your comments, or I'll give Albert the information. He can share that information with you as well. But again, like our video, subscribe to our channel, drop a comment, good, bad, or indifferent, and until next time, I say get your chart run and know yourself a little deeper, so that you can unlock your soul's potential and navigate this planet, and especially right now with all we're going through. All right, thank you for your time.